and some intriguing things are going to be shared by Daktari. He's Dr. Edward Mungai. Now, interesting thing about Dr. Edward Mungai is I have been following him and I have been reading and listening to the different work he does. And we'll be sharing his LinkedIn profile for you to even follow and listen more to the kind of work he does. And something interesting about him is he's a coach as much as he's very, very passionate about climate. And the most interesting thing is he's always sharing very useful information in LinkedIn. And I would really insist if you can't follow him, please do. But a little bit about him. So he's Dr. Edward Mungai. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Climate Center, known as KCIC. He leads the team across focus areas and crafts unconventional strategies to drive innovation and entrepreneurship in climate change. Now, just having the two words together, innovation and entrepreneurship, and additional word and climate is something that I would want us to just resonate a little bit so that we can see how do they go all in together, because right now everybody is into entrepreneurship, but not so many people are thinking about climate change, and therefore just trying to figure out the innovative ways on how we can add that up as we are becoming or we develop our entrepreneurship skills. It's really interesting, and we will get to learn more from him. He is also a multifaceted background in business advisory, entrepreneurship, and investment management, having worked with the Danish International Investment Fund, IFU, as an investment manager in Copenhagen, as well as in Africa, where he was the head of the regional office of IFU. Edward holds an executive MBA as well as a business management degree from Moi University, Kenya. He has a huge interest in corporate sustainability and has been involved in high-level discussions of the topic across Africa and the USA. Edward is a 2016 Enish Howe Fellow and a published author of the book Impact Investing in Africa. Edward is also a coach, you should know. And the most interesting thing, he is actually reading two books right now, one in also in coach. So we will look forward for him telling us what he's learning from the books, but most importantly, for us to be able to understand what ESG is all about. Edward, welcome, and tafadhali, explain more. This is one thing I remember somebody just asked me in a WhatsApp today in the evening, Dorcas, what is this ESG? You know, and one person was it governance? Is it goals? What is this about? Please take us through.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I hope you can hear me well. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank, the network for inviting me this evening, to come and share just a little bit about what ESG means and why it matters. ESG is about, environmental, social, and governance. And I think this is a very traditional title that we've given this talk, because this is where we were 10 years ago. And I'm going to explain a little bit more in terms of that journey. Now, I want to burst a bubble, Dorcas, in the sense that you said I'm working for KCIC, and indeed, I work for KCIC, but as you can see, I've put Impact Africa Consulting Limited. This is because I'm transitioning. It's been 10 years of having fun, and the organization is at the highest level ever, starting from 4 employees all the way to about 120. And I thought that I should be able to give this to somebody else who then can be able probably to put their thoughts and probably make it 240 employees, if not 500. So I'm actually in that journey of transitioning. But before we get into that journey of transitioning, let me just add a little bit about my background, because I think the context of it will be very useful. Number one, it's important to note that, I have a lot of experience when it comes to finance and when it comes to investment. I'm probably like most of you, who this word ESG, or I want to replace that ESG with sustainability, and I'll explain why, is kind of, an interesting topic, but probably you do not know what it means. And I want to take you back about 12 years ago when I got into Copenhagen. Well, not 12, actually 15 years ago when I got into Copenhagen. And I was told, to work for an investment fund called Danish International Investment Fund. And two things happened for me. Number one, it was my first time to go to Europe, but that really is not a big thing. But when I went to the kitchen, of this organization, and I found that there was no milk, there was no sugar, shock number one, because I'm used to very nicely sugared tea with a lot of milk, but in this case, there was none. The second surprise, and this is a little big surprise, is when I sat in a meeting and I was told, it doesn't matter how much money you make from a transaction. What matters is the impact and the difference that that transaction can be able to make. Basically saying, let's not focus on one bottom line. Let's go for triple bottom line, and if possible, even the fifth bottom line. And that, friends, was a game changer. I was coming from KPMG, where it was about how best you can be able to make money for the shareholders. This was a new conversation about stakeholders, and truly the conversation about sustainability is about value creation for all the stakeholders within a business. Now, that said, of course, I did my good job there. I did for 6 years, and then after those 6 years, I thought that I should do something for our country. And that's when, I got 450 million, that's climate change and sustainability expert from the World Bank to try and establish a center within Strathmore, to try and champion climate change as an opportunity. And let's step one back. What do we mean climate change as an opportunity? Is to say that, yes, I understand many of you are saying ESG, sustainability is soft part of the business, is about, feeling good. Truly, it's not about feeling good. It's where you look at, challenges that our world is facing. And as a business, you try to figure out how can you turn them around. This is exactly, the journey that I went through, 450 million. Today, we are at 7 billion shillings at KCIC and growing and managing agriculture, renewable energy, water, waste, and commercial forestry, trying to get better livelihoods for Kenyans. And because of this, I've been involved in various discussions around, climate change. I negotiate, and I'm also a global consultant when it comes to this discussion. And that's, the if you like, monetization, which I'm getting to that phase of the experience, having, toiled for those 10 years to try and build something beautiful in this country. My work, and you'll be able to see, is based on research. I just, a couple of years, I got a PhD on the same subject from Strathmore University. And for those who read Business Daily every Thursday, including today, in fact, today I have an article which is about the role of private sector when it comes to climate change. So again, if you can be able to get hold of Business Daily, have a look, and it'll be interesting to read what, my perspective is. Just to mention that, the whole conversation about, my work is based on research. And the facts that I'll give here are facts which are based in research, and that then makes it, for you to be able to identify with it. And finally, I teach, executives at Strathmore Business School, where I'm adjunct faculty. And again, a little bit of my time will also be spent there. So in a nutshell, this is it. And I call myself a sustainability evangelist. So truly, I'm evangelizing this gospel. And I hope that at the end of this session, I'll have a couple of apostles who will join this bandwagon, and hopefully we can do good business as we do good. And that is exactly what the definition of ESG is. It's about doing good by doing good business. So again, we will get into the details of that and how exactly it turns out. But it's important to notice that, or to note that, our world is facing many challenges. We might decide, as board members, as managers, to go back into our, business as usual and do things as we have done them before. But we also have a choice. And what is that choice? It's about saying, yes, we do have a role and responsibility to be able to provide our people, to provide the planet, and to provide our stakeholders with more value. And as we create that value, it is not philanthropy. And I'm underlining that. It is about doing good as good business. Traditionally, we've done good to feel good, where we've been giving these big dummy checks. We've been giving mosquito nets. We've been things which are not really integrated within our business model. And we'll be able to see some of the challenges, that the businesses in this country have been facing when it comes to embedding sustainability within their business. But let's pause one step back. What do we mean by sustainability? It have got, 3 facets. It's about that environmental responsibility, it's about that economic responsibility, and it's also about that social responsibility. We truly know a lot about environment. We know a lot about, what I would call economic sustainability. What we do not know much is about that social responsibility. And that social responsibility, is what you are calling health and well-being here, is what is it that you do with your employees? What is it that you're doing with the neighboring community? What contribution are you making, to the challenges that the world is facing? When we talk about, environmental, we are talking about climate, we are talking about how can you be able to reduce your carbon footprint as an organization. And all of these, have very specific benefits that you can be able actually to accrue as an organization as you engage with this journey. So the truth of the matter is that we are here, of course, to make our shareholders, and I underline, to make our shareholders create more value, but we cannot do that at the expense of other stakeholders. And our journey, our effort is to make sure that we create value to all our stakeholders. And if we do that, it becomes a win-win. These days is about win-win, from the various stakeholders, but also, keeping to the fact that it is also about our shareholders. Now, this is what, the World Economic Forum is telling us about the Global Risk Report 2022. I mean, things that we have thought would be the risks truly are not the risks. It's about extreme weather, it's about climate action failure, it's about human environment damage, infectious disease, of course, COVID, biodiversity loss, digital power concentration, and digital inequality. When you look at these things, they are all speaking to this conversation that you're having. And as you can be able to see, this journey, when you look at 2012, it was about economic disparity, it was physical imbalances, it was about water crisis, it's cyber attack. You can be able clearly to see, how that journey have transitioned over time. And truly, we must, as businesses, as board members, as management, we must be able to try and see how can we embed sustainability, or what you call environmental, social, and governance element within our organization. And truly, it's not for the sake of, just doing it. And I think this is one of the, one of the myths, and you'll be able to see more myths that people, in companies are having as far as the conversation about sustainability goes. It is about providing solutions, but those solutions that you're providing will be able to accrue benefits to your respective organization. Now, it's important to note that, as our world get to be faced with many challenges, it is important to know that business have got a critical role, to play in securing a better world. And this is not a cliche. This is what, if we engage into it, you will be able to see 5 good benefits that you'll be able to get. And I hope I will be able to articulate those benefits, because this is what you are chasing. It is also important to note that it is the board and management responsibility to take the lead. If we don't talk about this, if we don't champion it, it will not go anywhere. So it is important at the highest level of our organizations, we think about it and we try to see how best we can be able to embed it. And finally, strategic actions must come from the board, and the boards must ask the right questions, must have the right tools, must have the right knowledge to be able to push this agenda forward. Now, it must be strategic in the sense that we do not want to do things which are unrelated to our businesses. And truly, this is what we've been doing. A lot of conversations in the boardroom is about how can we be able to contribute to, for instance, as I was saying, mosquito nets, including sometimes even sponsorship. Sports sponsorship, not that they are bad, but is about stepping one back and trying to understand how truly does this, contribute to our business? And this is why it is important that each an organization can be able to build its very specific business strategy or sustainability strategy to speak this language. Now, the truth of the matter is that in the last 3 months, I can tell you unexpectedly, and some of the companies that have asked me to take them through the journey of making sustainability strategy for their organization is people that you never thought that they would ask for that. And it's truly out of the recognition that this subject is so important. And I like the fact that, the network have decided that this is an area that we would like, to equip our members with some knowledge into it, because truly in the next couple of years, this will be it. And if organizations are not embracing it, it will be a big challenge. Business as usual, considering nature is unlimited and free of charge, is going to die. And this is what I call, the environmental piece. We cannot be able to assume that nature, is unlimited. We must be able to see it. In fact, we are talking about now costing of natural resources and trying to, to cost them and see what exposures as organizations are we having, what risks are we seeing. And we must be able to think about it in a much better way. A good example here is, for a long time, in this country, we've been talking about water as an example. And indeed, you ask many people, they will tell you water comes from God, and it's true. But spare parts never comes from God. And also, the resources are getting deprived. Very soon we run out of that water. So if, for instance, you're in a beverage making company and you use X number of liters to make 1 liter of your product, then it's the right time now to start thinking about, how can we be able to reduce that? Let me give you an example. Breweries are using on average, about 4 liters of water to make 1 liter of beer. Now, it is to their importance or their interest to make sure that they reduce that to 2.5, because then water becomes a scarce resource and water need to be costed. This is exactly what you are saying, that businesses cannot look at nature to be unlimited and to be free of charge. There must be some level of costing, and that costing is what then will be able to push them one forward and say, okay, let's go to Mau and protect let's go to Mau and conserve biodiversity, so that then we can be able to recharge the aquifers. Now, that is a sustainability discussion, as opposed, to that thinking of companies are planting trees. And in fact, they should be talking about growing trees. And so for breweries and for, beverage companies, it makes a lot of sense for them, as opposed to, to sponsoring rallies and stuff like that, to go in and probably plant more trees, because that way they secure themselves for more water. Now, business as usual will definitely be economically stupid. What are we saying here? It does not make sense. If we continue doing business as we have done before, it will not make sense. A case in point, about 5-6 years ago, actually, let me not take you that far. Well, actually, let me take you 5-6 years ago, which is Kinangop Wind Power. Many of you probably know this project. One of the financial institutions put $80 million into it. It got into trouble because they never engaged the communities. They never went and tried to deal with sustainability issues, environment and social governance issues. What eventually happened? Lost $80 million out of one transaction. Let me take you a couple of months ago. Kakuzi had issues when it comes to supermarket in the UK. What was the issue? Human rights abuse, not compensating people in the right way, not having proper, infrastructure for the employees. What did that mean? Cancellation of orders, delisting from supermarkets. Truly, it was economically stupid for them not to have been looking at this. Now they are in what I call a fast track mode. You can't believe the kind of work that they are trying to do, the committees they've set up. It is also socially unacceptable. Now, let me give you a statistic. In 2020, I did a study in East Africa. 56% of the East Africans told me they would like to buy from sustainable companies. Now, if you are not becoming sustainable, you will lose your customers. I repeated that study in 2021, and guess what? 67% of the people say they want to buy from sustainable companies. I can stop this presentation there and say goodbye, good people, because it clearly shows, why we need to embed sustainability, ESG, into our businesses. This is why it matters. Customers are becoming more conscious day and day out. You go into the supermarkets, you are seeing people not throwing things into the shopping cart. They have to read what is the content. What they are trying to educate themselves is what is the makeup of that product and is it made sustainably? Remember, we are in an era of SDGs. There's SDG called SDG number 12. It's about sustainable consumption and production. This is what the citizenry is wanting. And if your company is not doing it, it will definitely be socially unacceptable and you will not be able to make money. Very soon, we will be able to close you down. It's also very dangerous legally in the sense that we have seen, legal liabilities coming out of the fact that you're not becoming sustainable. And it's also about the policies and the governing structures that are being put in place. Just a case in point, on October 15, 2021, Central Bank of Kenya issued a guideline for the banks that banks starting 30th of June, 2022, must be able to clearly show what is it they are doing with climate change risk-related and opportunities. Again, this conversation is becoming legally dangerous. It can easily put you out of business. In fact, for listed companies, in November last year, NSE and Capital Market Authority issued guidance for listed companies, which is based on what we call Global Reporting Initiative standards, which they must be able to comply. So friends, we've been for a long time on what is called voluntary mechanisms. What we have seen now is that more and more regulators are going in and regulating this. In the EU, as an example, sustainability is regulated. Now that have an effect for us. If your company is exporting to the EU, then you must be able to comply. And this is the effect of this. This is exactly why we must be able to embrace this within our organization. The truth of the matter is that there will be winners and there will be losers. The winners will be those who see it as an opportunity. The losers are those who see it as just a compliance. And leave it, to different departments within the organization. Sustainability must be central to your organization. In fact, each and every business, department must have a champion. And this is the model that we have picked, that let's work with champions. Let's work with evangelists within your organization who then can be able to help the organization to be a winner when it comes to sustainability matters. Now, you might be asking then, Edward, what does it mean for us? What are the benefits? It's about business competitiveness. And we all know business competitiveness will come, mainly from 5 perspectives. It is about, the revenues that you'll be able to make. If I can be able to convince you, the business case is about increasing revenues. That's number 1. Number 2, if I can be able to convince you that you will be able to cut costs as an organization. Number 3 is that you'll be able to manage your risks. And number 4 is about you'll have better reputation. And number 5, and very important, is that you get that social license to operate, then truly we will be in business. Now, this is what ESG is all about. This is why it matters, because it will derive for you more revenues, but you must roll your sleeves. If it is going to derive you more revenues, you must be able to roll your sleeves and go beyond, the traditional business model that you've been operating on. And what are we talking about here? It is about you becoming more innovative and coming up with new products within your organization, which are sustainable. I mean, a good example here, which you might not, assume that is sustainability, and I'll give a big one and a small one, is when we talk about Safaricom as an example. They do have a beautiful product called M-Pesa, which we are told that M-Pesa contributes about 35% of the organizational revenues. Now, how did the M-Pesa start? Let's ask ourselves that question. It was a solution that was built to solve a social problem in Kenya. And what was the social problem? It was about financial inclusivity. What we used to call DFID, now called FCDO, gave them £1 million to go and try. Go and play around with ideas and come back and you tell us whether you have a solution. Now, out of that £1 million is how we build M-Pesa. And M-Pesa is a sustainable product because it's about sustainability. It's about solving the challenges that Kenyans are facing. That time, I think probably financial inclusivity was to the level of 20 years, about 20%. Now, today, we say we are probably 70, 80, 90%. Thank M-Pesa. But from that perspective, Safaricom is gaining 35% of its revenues from this conversation. Now, let me give a simple example. I've been talking about climate change as an opportunity. Where we have seen businesses before making biogas systems, and these are small and medium enterprises, and trying to install those biogas systems into homes. Now, they've discovered there's something called carbon credits, and they have innovated around it, and they have now started selling carbon credits, which brings even more revenues. Friends, this is what it is all about. It's about stepping one step forward and saying, let's look at it as an innovative way of bringing new products, and those products then generate our revenue. Notwithstanding the fact that because you are sustainable and you have shown the world that you are sustainable, you attract more customers. I just gave a statistic, 67% of East Africans want to buy from sustainable companies. So if you become sustainable, people will buy from you. If you're unsustainable, you lose your market share. So truly is about building those revenues within your organization. It's also about cost management. And I give a brilliant example with my university, Strathmore University. A couple of years back, we decided we're gonna use solar to power the university. Probably is the only, company which gets a check from Kenya Power. Because when we have excess, which is again is a buildup of revenue, but more importantly, we are saving a lot of bills when it comes to power. When it comes to risk management, I gave an example of East African breweries as an example. If they run out of water, what does it mean? It will be more costly for them to manage the business. So what about if they start conserving our water and, going into Mau, going into different water towers and planting trees or growing trees for the sake of safeguarding that asset or that resource? They will truly be managing their risks. A good point, or rather a good case, is the river mining. We know a couple of years they've been, and I want you to place yourself into the board of a river mining. I think a couple of years back, I think 6, 7 years, they were closed down by NEMA. Why? Because of the way they were extracting and the way they were polluting. As a board member, you have to ask yourself a question. Is there anything we can be able to do to manage this risk of closure? Well, at the same time, you can also be able to throw in something which will bring revenues. A brilliant example is what Lafarge is doing in this thing called the Harapak. Once in a while, they charge for that, but at the same time, they are conserving the environment. They are taking responsibility of a mess that they created. Now, they look good to us and they get that which I call social license to operate. People will not go up in arms, chasing and trying to close the business. This is exactly what happened to Kinango, not Lake, but Kinango Wind Power, because they never engaged with the communities. The community didn't give them that social license to operate. And as I said, $80 million was lost. Friends, sustainability is key for our businesses. This is a gospel we've been preaching for 10 years. It was taken for granted. Where we are, for those who embrace it, and we can name them, we can clearly see the benefits that they are reaping from this. So the $1 million question is, where are you as far as this journey is concerned? And what is it that you're gonna do? I will probably at the end be gracious enough to give you some couple of way forward in terms of what we need to do. But beyond that, beyond business competitiveness, if you have investors, believe me, if they haven't started asking, they will start asking you to articulate clearly, how are you dealing with climate? How are you dealing with, employees? How are you dealing with the government and paying taxes? Not for the sake of paying and compliance, but for the sake of transferring benefits to others. So investors demand, in fact, I was speaking to one of the listed banks, and the investor, relation department was telling me 8 out of 10 discussions with investors, they will ask about these things. It's also about that increased awareness. We are talking about there is much better increased awareness when it comes, to issues of climate change, issues of social sustainability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability. It's also about disclosure requirements that are required. I just shared a good example there about, Central Bank of Kenya, Nairobi Security Exchange. I've also talked about Capital Market Authority. They are truly pushing for this. And you also have another bonus. Do it well, money is flowing. Money is flowing for those who are sustainable. So truly, it is to say that boards have got a big, huge role, to bring this thing on board and to see it as an opportunity. Let us not see it as what I would call as philanthropy, as for us to be able to feel good. It is about, making that huge difference. Now, what's the status?
Dr. Let me just pause because you are so passionate and we're feeling your energy. And there's a question that has been asked, and I would want to take you back to your previous post. And the thing is, you've given us the benefits, the business competitiveness, and somebody is asking, this is from Mercy Okiro. She's asking, can you recommend at least 2 best places to train ESG for boards? Because this is a conversation that is from top down, and we need to find a way on how we bring this discussion as board members. What's the best way of even, introducing this if it's something that has not been put forth? Because we're doing corporate governance, we're doing all these other things, we're making sure the books are right. But now, in regards to just ensuring we have ESG in it, how do we get it right? And, how can we have more awareness in regards to this? You're muted, Daktari. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry for that. So I was just saying that at the end of it I'll have a couple of suggested way forwards. But I think, from my perspective, is about first and foremost capacity building people, because it's all about lack of awareness. This knowledge that we are sharing this evening, is what need to be spread in most companies, in most boards, so that they can be able to clearly see, what opportunities are there. There is an art and a science on where to start. The truth of the matter is that there's hundreds of things you can be able to do within your organization which will qualify to be sustainability. Now, we must have a priority as far as which things to be able to push forward. And that's the most important exercise that any board should be able to engage in. It's called materiality concept, or materiality, having a materiality matrix. Materiality meaning things that matters. And it's made up of 2 components. One is about engaging with management and the board and agreeing what are the issues that matter for the business. Now, it's also about mapping those items. You map with discussions with your stakeholders, and your stakeholders telling you what matters for them. Now, whatever becomes prioritized by management and the stakeholders, then it becomes your material matters. Now, those 5 to about 8 material matters is what then we should be able to push and take them. So that again is, what I was saying, that awareness is very important. And I just give an example here, because I think the context of this example will be helpful. Every time I have a class in Strathmore teaching innovation and sustainability, it doesn't matter whether it is middle management, whether it is, global CEO, or whether it is advanced management program, I always ask one question, and which I'm going to ask here. Is a question about, and allow me to use this good example about Equity Bank. Equity Bank have got something they call Wings to Fly, which they educate 3,000, 4,000 high school kids every year, and they pay their school fees. And then later on, they send about 100 to Ivy League schools in the US. And I keep on asking people, now, what do you think? Is this CSR meaning cosmetic social responsibility, or is it sustainability? Now, I'm going to give you the answer. The answer is that 50-50 is the answer that I normally get. 50% say it's corporate or rather cosmetic social responsibility. Another 50% say it is sustainability. My answer, it is sustainability. And it's about understanding, what's going to happen 10, 15 years when those kids who have gone to Ivy League comes back and they become our CEOs. Those are the people with employer CEOs. Now, the allegiance which have been built, the loyalty that have been built, will be reflected in where they will be able to bank with their institutions. And I think is one element to build on that concept I was calling, the concept of revenues. Because you have locked these guys and they will do business with you. And that's why it qualifies, to be sustainability. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that we must be able to go a little bit deeper, try to understand the concepts and position them in our circumstances and in our context. And based on that, then we can be able to implement. Now, it is not as easy as I'm talking about it here. It requires management and boards and staff all to be on the same page. In fact, I say it's a cultural change that we need within our organizations. And for those who have managed, clearly it's a cultural change where people see themselves as part and parcel of this journey and to make it happen. So indeed that, would be my starting point. Says build the capacity. And based on that capacity, we go to our materiality matters. We choose what is it that we want, and hopefully we can walk the journey towards that, implementation. Happy? Should I proceed?
Yes, Dr. Kindly do. And I think you're just, touching on where it matters, because once we do embrace and we see how the benefits play out, it makes it easier to figure out how do we play it out. I think the major concern is when there are no tools provided or opportunities of us to understand how to have the policies in place. The examples you've given of Safaricom and the rest of the companies become great examples to follow through. But sometimes the challenge comes in, where do we get the budget? How do we play it out? And with the different industry setups, how do we then compare ourselves if we are on financial services or we are, it's good. We have Strathmore, which is under education. And it's a great example that any other institute can pick up. But when you're doing like for like, it becomes easy. But when now we're looking at certain aspects, for instance, in the NGO space, and leave the ones who are concentrating on climate and everything. I'm just picking on aspects where people are trying to focus on other aspects under the goals. How do we incorporate this in any organization? Because it is affecting everyone. And how do we ensure then it becomes part of the strategic plan? Because if it's not put in place up there, then we will not have any initiatives at all.
And I totally agree with you. But did you say about budget at one point? Did you talk about budget?
Just a little bit, because you've said right now there's money and it is available. How do we get our proposals in check so that we get the budgets in place, the boards approve, and it becomes a seamless flow downwards to a point that, because what I've seen like in Safaricom is people own the process. You know, the employees are the ones owning the process, taking up projects and running through. Now, how do we ensure it just goes all the way to the bottom and everybody makes it like a lifestyle? That even when we're looking for initiatives, it's not coming from management because they want to tick a box, but it's coming from what we have seen the outcome can be by having in place right policies, right initiatives, proper awareness in regards to how we can have initiatives that work, not just a one-off play because we want to plant trees and want to do this. No, a continuous discussion that is put into place that is not just pegged to ticking a box.
Yeah, and that's actually a very valid point. And we will come to the myths because there is myths about sustainability. You know, like as you can imagine, you know, different people have different perspectives in terms of, you know, what does it mean? And including, you know, that point that you raise about budget, including the subject of the size of the business, you know, but the truth is that, you know, this is for everybody. Now, the unfortunate thing is that, you know, when you look at the status of sustainability in Kenyan companies, this is how it looks like. And I'm sure you are associated with many of these. First and foremost, is like that integration with the business model. We are doing haphazard things. One of the companies I've been doing a strategy for, you know, they've been doing a lot of stuff, which, how do I put, I mean, like, and not that those items they are doing are useless, it's only that they are not connected to their business. And yet they just need to stick, you know, to take a few steps back and try to see how can they turn around some of those things they are doing to make a difference. Let me just give an example because I think it will make things to be more clearer. You know, one of the company I did strategy, I think late last year, had a fantastic, you know, school sponsorship program where every year they are sponsoring, I think about 15, 20 students in top-notch high schools. Now, it is an engineering company. And it doesn't matter what people they are supporting, whether they are doing arts, whether they are doing sciences, or whatever it is. And I was challenging, and I was saying, well, on one side, you want to go with sustainability goal number 5, which is about, you know, gender equality and stuff like that. And you want more women to be in STEM. Why would it not then make sense, these 20 slots that you've got, instead of just having it as a blanket, you start helping ladies or girls who have a lot of interest in STEM. And then you make it such that they will even have internships with you, and you will probably be able to identify some talent out of these 20, and hopefully you can employ them, hopefully you can upgrade their skills, and you contribute to building more women into engineering. And they were, wait a minute, actually that's what we should be doing, because that way it is integrated with our business model. So this is the point, that many of the companies, they are just doing things for the sake of doing them. But why do they do that? It is because of where this conversation have always been placed. It is a public relation, is a marketing, is a CSR, you know, driven conversation. Yet it is a big, you know, strategic perspective discussion. When you look at the most progressive companies and you look at their sustainability departments, you will be able to see that they are entrenched within the strategy department. It is not marketing, it's not PR. We have made a mistake as Kenyans, and as many Kenyan companies, that's why we position it. So you ask people, are you doing sustainability? Yes, of course we do sustainability. What kind of things do you do? We go play volleyball with kids in children's homes. Not that it is bad, but if I ask you, how does that, you know, contribute to the business model of your business? And believe me, there are people who will be able to do that because it fits within them. But for you is to step one back and understand Where can I be able to contribute in the best way possible, give it all, but at the same time, it become a win-win. Then we have organizations which now have confused the whole game. And they have said for us to be sustainable, we must have a foundation. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And the moment you have a foundation, it have what I call mission creep. You start moving one direction, the business starts moving to the other direction. But if you can be able to bring both of them together and let the foundation be the softer part of your business to do the softer things, whereas the business continues with the hard stuff. Now, unfortunately, we go and say these foundations will receive 2% or 1.5% of profit after tax. What happens when you don't make money? Are we saying it doesn't matter? It's also about the lack of capacity and the gaps we've seen. Traditionally, we haven't trained people on this subject of sustainability, but I tell you, in my business school, we are talking about it now as part of core curriculum. But unfortunately, the skills are not there. So we must, and that's why I said we must be able to build a skill, we must be able to build a culture. And the way you do that is by having champions. And you invest on the champions. And those champions are the ones who will pass the messages and who will help you to grow sustainability culture within your organization. And finally, it's about you don't have the tools, you don't have the policies. We need to change the policies. And those policies must be able to reflect, the sustainability part of it. The tools must be there, monitoring and evaluation. How do you monitor what is going on? And once you put all these things, which is missing now in the Kenyan companies, truly will be in business. Talking about the myths related to sustainability. I think one of the biggest one is cost more money. Yes, of course it costs more money. But the benefits, we must cost those benefits. So in the short term, for instance, just to give another example, Strathmore, we spent $2.5 million to put the solar system. But you know what? Within 3 years, 4 years, it's paid back. But many organizations will shy away from this. Now, the good news is that there's many people who are financing this kind of stuff. So you don't need actually to pay that upfront. So if you are dedicated and if you are committed to it, you can go to an investor. I said 8 out of 10 conversation about investments is about this subject. And that, if that is the case, then there's money which is flowing to this. CSR is an ad hoc activity within organization. We must be able to move sustainability from that being ad hoc. It must be the way of doing business. And if we do that, we remove it from PR, we remove it from CSR, which is traditional, then we can be able to move. But unfortunately, in conversations in the board, in ExCos, we are not talking enough about this subject. Now, if we can talk more about it, opportunities will flow. We will be able to manage our risks. Then, of course, there is the argument, this thing is for Safaricom, this thing is for Kenya Commercial Bank Group, this thing is for Unilever, this thing is for GSK, it's not for SMEs, it's not for us. There is that myth that it is for the old, big, cash-rich companies. No, it's not. I mean, I give you an example. I have 2 ladies in industry area who have been, packaging, well, not packaging, but they've been working with farmers in Meru and in other places trying to get macadamia nuts. Now, they could have sat in industry area, wait for people to bring nuts from Meru and from Ranga and from wherever to them. But they decided that they are going to do it the sustainable way. And what does that mean? Go out and identify farmers who can grow these macadamia nuts for you. Have extension officers, give them inputs and seedlings. Make sure that you are helping them in terms of the husbandry of the trees. And then let them secure the crop for you. Now, that is extending backwards because you want also to create jobs and to make livelihoods better. But at the same time, it opens door for you. Now they export to the Netherlands and they attract better prices. And they are managing the risk in the sense that they have constant supply. This is what you are talking about. It is not for the big companies. it is even for us as small companies, if we are small companies, and especially, to help us get that exposure, where otherwise you couldn't have that exposure. It must require commitments. So if we think that sustainability is for the head of departments, we are mistaken. The talk should come from the board, from the CEO, and they must be the champions. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. I tell my students, if your CEO is not talking about it, forget about it. If your board is not talking about it, forget about it, because they will not give you the resources. They don't understand what you're doing. They will not support it. But I'm glad that many of you are here, and hopefully then we can be able to support this journey, because it is a fascinating journey. Not only that you will see the value you create, to other stakeholders, but also how your shareholders will be happy at the end of the day. That's why we call it, triple bottom line. But why is it that you're not doing it? Yes, some people have the information, but they are still not doing it. Number one is because we still have that negative baggage. We still don't have the right mindset. We are still arguing with the mates of sustainability. We are saying it is for the selected few. We are saying this thing doesn't make sense. We are in the camp of Donald Trump, who says climate change is a hoax. Friends, is to say we must change our mindset, because once we change our mindset and we see the opportunities, believe me, many things is going to happen. It's also about the business case. A lot of people say, Edward, show us the business case. Which business case do I need to show? I mean, I just give an example of Safaricom. And if you doubt that M-Pesa is not, is not this journey, well, then what it is? It's also exactly the same, the people in Meru. It's called exotic nuts. There is a business case. It's not about payback period. It's not about the amount you put up front. This is why the ones who have gotten the business case, they are moving and moving very fast. Of course, it could also be because nobody is pushing. Now, unfortunately, central bank, there it is, pushing the banks. But I tell you, even the banks, some of them have chosen. Some of them have chosen to look at it as a compliance issue. Others have chosen to look at it as an opportunity issue. Now, who is going to win? Those who are in compliance, they will tick boxes. Those who are looking at it as an opportunity will go deep down and understand their business models and try to see what is it that we can be able to get out of this. And there are gems that they can be able to unlock. If the board, if the investors, if the customers are not pushing, it doesn't happen. Now, the truth of the matter, all these people now are up in arms and they are pushing towards us moving to sustainability. Of course, there is a big fear of backlash, and this is to you guys, and especially those who are in the boards. I give an example. One of the utilities, I was doing their sustainability report, and I told the management recently, guys, you must tell, in fact, this is a good subject that I'm raising here. You must tell the world that you have 2 women as board members. And they said, man, Edward, we can't do that. Why? Because this is a skeleton in their closet. They don't want to show it. And sustainability is not about shaming. It's about, yes, we've got 2, but what is it we are doing to make it 4? And then you tell that journey. Next year we meet again and we see you at 3. That's the trajectory. But because of the fear of backlash, nobody wants to get involved. And they say, no, let's not touch that area. So again, that leads us to what is called greenwashing. It's telling stories which are not right. We have seen it with Volkswagen. We've seen it with, Deutsche Bank. And they have paid heavily. So it's a matter of, making that commitment and saying, guys, we're going to go through it full throttle. Irrespective of what it is, it's about showing progression. It's about saying, this is where we are, this is where we are going, and this is where we are at this point. It's also about lack of support, within our organization, because we are too busy, chasing 2 other things. We are too shy. It's also about, it's not our problem. The fact that there is infectious diseases, the fact that you have climate change, those are not our problems. But believe me, they are your problems, and you must be able to encounter them and try to see how you can turn them around for them to be able to become, that which I call an opportunity within your organization. So these are 5 reasons why we are not becoming. And I hope that, going forward, we will truly be able to become. Corporate citizenship is what we need. We must be able to look at that social role of business and embrace it and combine business and sustainability. And before you know it, we will truly flourish as organization and move, forward. Now, this is the journey and this is the sustainability curve. I want you to assess yourself. I don't need the answers, but you can assess yourself. Where are you as far as this journey is concerned? Are you in that class of rigor and compliance, where it's about, doing rigor stuff and ensuring that you meet the standards? There's those who are doing strategic philanthropy. Again, they are doing charitable things. It's not that they are bad, but we must be able to continue matching those to our business objectives. It's also about, getting into that value-based self-regulation, where it becomes, it is you driving yourself and saying, these are the things we want to do, and they will guide our business behavior. It's also about trying to get, efficiency. That's what I was calling revenues. It was our calling, the incomes, and it's also about the cost management that you're making. And then it provides you, with that growth platform where you will be able to make more money as an organization as you get into this journey, like I said, Safaricom or my ladies who are doing this nuts in industry area. Now, what's the way forward? And I want to leave some time for discussions. So if you ask me what is the way forward, first and foremost, actively look for those opportunities. Again, let's go back to materiality concept. Let's engage with our staff. Let's engage with our excos. Let's try to figure out, where are the opportunities? Then we must be able to seek seeking technical support, within to help us, to be able to get this and to be able to adapt the opportunities, to the various given opportunities, scenarios and priorities. Again, you have too many opportunities, but you have to focus. And as you focus, you must sit back and try to ask yourself, do I have the right skills and the knowledge to be able to build this? We must be able to build our institution, both in terms of awareness creation, capacity building, and in fact, the newest now in the market is where boards are thinking about having sustainability committees. Believe me, in the next couple of, maybe in the next 12 months, you will start seeing boards announcing that they do have a sustainability committee of the board to push these things. Partnerships, we talk about sustainable development goals. Goal number 17 is about partnerships. This is how you'll be able to get more traction if you get into partnership. So friends, you must first and foremost go back, try to understand the scenario, the context, and come up with opportunities. Then you must be able to put those opportunities into a discussion and come up, with what matters. Then you must be able to build that culture within the organization by providing the tools, providing the knowledge and the awareness for the institutional to be able to build onto that discussion of sustainability. And finally, you must be able to start establishing the various partnerships that will deliver you to that space. I want to stop at that. I know we will be able to have many discussions, and I'm happy to continue telling stories because truly my job is to evangelize, and I do hope that I have a couple of evangelists in this group. Back to you, Dorcas.
Wow, I am telling you, you have evangelized. You have walked it through and you've made it sound so simple, as if we can just plug and play tomorrow without having had the experience or having had any training, and I like that because you're simplifying this narrative, which is important to have. And I'll just like to open the floor, ladies, for you to be able to ask the questions. I know there was a question that was asked in regards to training, and I know you'll emphasize more in regards to it. But feel free, any clarification, because one thing Daktari has mentioned, and what I like, I would just like to just bounce back in regards to the sustainability curve, which to me is really important because sometimes we get stuck on the legal and compliance, and we feel getting that right and all that documentation will help us go up to the growth stage. But my first question to you, Daktari, would be, where can we get trained? How do we start having this awareness conversation more in our workplaces so that we can just elevate this up to the different levels. I've also seen Rosang has a question, so I'll also allow her to ask so that you can tackle this, and then we continue listening to the other questions from the ladies. Rosang, unmute.
Thank you, Dorcas, and thank you, Dr. Mungai. Apologies, I couldn't moderate today's session. You can hear I have a bit of a flu, but thank you for the presentation. My question is around the aspect of sustainability reporting, because we see that, in various organizations, and there's now a requirement in some sectors that we do report. What are your thoughts around that? And, where do we start? Is it an audit function now? Where is it placed within the organization? Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Rose, and you will be well. I will pray for you that you be well. Now, this is a fantastic question, because I always ask, reporting on what? Because anybody in this market who wants to get into sustainability, the first thing they tell you is about sustainability reporting. And I always, ask this question, what are you reporting on? And I think that's the biggest mistake that we make as an organization, that we want to start reporting without even thinking about, what is it we are reporting on. The first and most important thing that we must, all of us here, and when you go back to our organization, is try and figure out, can we have some sort of strategy? Now, based on that strategy, as we implement it, is what we report on. So reporting becomes the end of pipe kind of story as opposed to the beginning of pipe story. Now, when it comes to reporting, there are very specific frameworks. It's really not about audit, because audit becomes also, again, the last part of that conversation. And what exactly do I mean? Many organizations, especially in Kenya, those who are progressive, they have sustainability strategy. They've gone and now they do sustainability report every year. Now, assurance comes in when that sustainability report is subjected to what we call assurance. I talked about greenwashing before. Is again trying to look at and say, these are the things that you've reported. May it be Safaricom. Safaricom, we will go into the report and we'll be able to ascertain whether those things they are saying there, they have actually done them. So that's the audit part, if you like, call it audit, and it becomes assurance. So in my view, the discussion about reporting is end pipe, and at the same time, there is a framework called GRI framework, Global Reporting Initiative. It's the best. Rather, is the most popular one, where we have more than 90% of the companies reporting on that. And this is exactly what our organization need to embrace. They must be able to go in and try to train themselves or train people to be able to understand GRI. Now, there was a question about, where are these courses? Where do we train? My simple answer is if you come to Strathman, it's fine. You can come and I'll teach you. But remember, I'll teach you when you are 40 people from 40 different organizations. It's cool, it's fine. But I think if you can go one step further and try to identify your 20 champions, have them having a customized course, because truly, as I said, there's no much courses which are going on as far as this subject is concerned, and custom make a course for your organization. And these days, what we have been seeing is that, we make one for champions. And then the second thing we do is that we do an online course, for the rest of your staff. So even if you have 500 staff, they will be able to access, that e-course or whatever you would call it. But at the same time, you have really, really trained your 20 champions, and that is a game changer. But of course, you are more than welcome to come to Strathmore, and I'll be happy to train you on sustainability. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, for sure you did. And I like the fact that you said it's really important to have a tailor-made training, because then it emphasizes on the specific organizational needs, and also it helps propel them to ensure that it's not just a conversation in the classroom, but immediately after that, they're able to play it out and I believe the guidance is there to make sure it plays out. Ladies, any other question you'd want to hear Daktari talking about? It would be really important to take advantage now that he's sharing his wisdom with us. And I like, Daktari, what you mentioned, how KCIC has reached a point where we have you handing it over to someone else so that you can even continue focusing, yes, on your vision, but also allow another leader to build it up. I think for me, the biggest challenge, and I'm getting to the question, is how do you ensure that the work you've started continues? And even as you hand it over, because most of the ladies who are here, some are entrepreneurs, and they would want to start in their own different ways. Like the ladies or the lady you've talked about who's working with the farmers and is coming up with different ways. How do we ensure that this narrative, no matter how small it is as it starts, is continued even as we hand over to other leadership? It would be really important to hear out.
Yeah, well, Dorcas, that's an interesting question. And I can tell you, this is a question that I can, be able to come here and speak for 3 hours about. But I think it boils to one simple thing, and a question that I keep on asking these days. And it's as simple as asking, what will you be doing 5 years from now? The truth of the matter, many of us haven't figured out that question, or we have never even thought about it. And that is about, living a life of being very deliberate. Now I'm talking about my other hobby, which is leadership. This is not sustainability, but somehow it's connected. And it's about, determining that which you want and then preparing for it. Stephen Covey told us on 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that we start with the end in the mind. It's about thinking about that 5 years or 15 years, what exactly would like to do. And then you look backward and you work towards it. So to answer your question is that, through this time, 5 years ago, I knew exactly what is it that I wanted. And I knew at what point I wanted to exit, because unfortunately, once we've co-found, once we have organization with 7 billion shillings, we want to stick there. Well, it depends. And people, I have had people telling me, Edward, are you serious? Even some going to the word that I used in my presentation, whether are you stupid? The truth of the matter is that you've defined what you want to be, and you have worked consistently towards it. And therefore, you also give other leaders the opportunity to go and try it out. Of course, I'll be there on the sidelines if they need my help, but I have taken the view that, I would like them also to champion it. But if they want my advice, I'll obviously be there to provide that advice. But it's also about 5 years building that system and to make sure that, you have a brilliant succession story. And based on that, then you can have people who can be able to take it forward. But it's all about being very deliberate and deciding what you want and going for it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Daktari. I can see Edith has her hand up. Edith, you can unmute to ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Daktari, for the in-depth discussion. I wanted to ask a question as an employee, not as a member of a board. If I wanted to bring this conversation to my board at my workplace, what would be your advice as the easiest point to begin this conversation? Thank you.
Yeah, well, what would be the easiest point? I think I would send you back and ask you to do some sort of desktop analysis. And you look at your business or your organization vis-a-vis the challenges that it will face, now or into the future. And then have a session, with management or with the board and clearly show them, what is it? You are not the prophet of doom here, but is to tell them, if we don't do anything, this thing is going to happen. And how do we deal with those things? Is by embedding, environment, social, and probably economic issues into our business, and even governance issues into our business model. And that way, probably, they can be able to see the sense into it. And they can start having, conversation. Of course, the other one is to ask me, and I'll do it for free, to come and speak to them and preach the gospel to them and evangelize to them. So that then they can be able to embrace it and try to see, I show them the opportunities. Or you can, from this knowledge, and I'm happy to share my slides, by the way, you can also be able to make a presentation, but that presentation, please back it up, with that desktop analysis that I talked about, and contextualize it to your organization and show clearly, those 5 things that I talked about. How can you gain social license to operate? How can you gain reputation? How can you make revenues? How can you cut costs? And how you can do risk management within your organization as a result of, going through this journey of sustainability. And believe me, sensible people will see the sense. Thank you.
Actually, if I don't take away from anything, I have listened that you are available to do this presentation on behalf of us and to champion as you walk the journey with us. And I think that's really important, because sometimes you want to go with the expert and make sure that the conversation becomes as engaging as possible, so that you are able to ensure the discussion has been done. And most importantly, we are able to have this implemented in organizations. Ladies, do you have any additional questions? We still have time. And I believe Dr. has so much he would want to share based on each question that will be asked. And I would say take advantage of the fact that he has said he is willing to sit down with you and be able to assist you first in understanding the desktop research that you need to do based on your organization, but most importantly, how do you come in and plug and play so that even you yourself, you're able to do the presentation to your board, to your management, to have this discussion as early as possible. And yes, it was interesting when I saw in his presentation the word stupid. It is important to eliminate some of these assumed conversations that should not take place and have had discussions on how we can look at climate change, create goals, create initiatives that can work. If there are any more questions, please raise up your hand or you can write it down. But just to echo some of the things that Dr. has said, I think the most important thing is having an impact and ensuring that this conversation continues, not only here in Zoom, but just goes out and you have discussion points. I can see Rosang was saying that it's an interesting perspective, having a sustainability committee at the board and making this part of the strategy. So it's really, really important to just see how we can plug that in. Jeff Miner is saying, as for our board, we have begun constituting a committee both at board and management and policy incorporated goals into strategy and now building capacity towards standardization. I think that's very fantastic. And the most important thing, ladies, remember, tap into the network, see what people are doing and see how you can work together to be encouraged to get this in your organization, because it is not as complex. And Dr. has said in regards to reports, we should do the reports to show what we're saying we're doing, but you shouldn't be fixated on how are you going to do the reporting so much that it delays the process. If there is no any other question, I would like to first thank you, Women on Board, for giving us this opportunity. I think it's a really, really important discussion that we needed to hear. I can see there's a question or some questions that have come through. So, Dr. You're being asked, would ESG undermine an organization competitiveness? That's question 1. And then question 2, does driving the ESG agenda mean sacrificing an organization's return? So I'll repeat the question. Question 1 says, would ESG undermine an organization's competitiveness? And question 2, does driving the ESG agenda mean sacrificing an organization's return?
Yeah, I think I'll give a perspective and a story to answer that question. Around end of 1971, 2 gentlemen, one was Milton Friedman and the other one was Fred Freeman, got into a big argument on what was then, one Newsweek magazine. And the conversation, Milton Freeman, was arguing that the role of business is to make money for the shareholders. Whereas, Fred Freeman was talking about, it is not about the stakeholders, it's not about the shareholders. It's about, being all inclusive. Well, unfortunately, Milton died and Fred Freeman is still alive, and the argument have always been, if Milton was to be alive, he would have converted. And exactly the same point I was raising, the 5 things that I talked about, it is about anchoring our businesses to competitiveness. Now, let's look at Kakuzi, and I'm using this as a brilliant example. Because of missing to adhere to human rights, which is social sustainability, by doing things which are not in line with the sustainability gospel, what happened to them? They lost market for their product for a couple of months. Does that contribute to the competitiveness? The answer is no. Did it make more returns to the shareholders? The answer is no. If they went ahead and they have this, certification for GAP, certification for fair trade, does that open more doors in the UK for them? Of course, yes. Does it mean the business become more competitiveness or more competitive? Of course. Does it mean more returns for the shareholders? Shareholder is one of the stakeholders? Of course, yes. So it is not at the expense of the shareholders that you are doing this. Remember where we started. We started by saying it is doing good, which is good business. And that's why it is important that as boards, as management, we go back to the drawing board and understand which thing matters for us, which are the things that can be embedded into our business. Otherwise, if we start doing, fancy projects which doesn't relate to our business model, I totally agree, with the question, because then it will be wasting and it will be at the detriment of our shareholders. And yet what you're trying to do is to share value. That's why it is important, we go back to the drawing board and understand what matters for us and what can be linked to our business model. And that way it will make a difference and it will make our business more competitive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. for just answering that. It's really important. I can see there's somebody who's asking, okay, we know we're going to share the presentation, but in regards to the documents and books, I think for the books, if Dr. you're able to share with us on the chat, they are, and I believe, are going to be a good read. And I know you read quite a lot, so I would really encourage the ladies, if they're able to follow your work in LinkedIn and even subscribe, because I always get the updates. So as I mentioned, it's first such an honor just listening to your work, because we can see where it's going and we can see what it's translating to. Any other question, ladies, as we're almost coming to a close at 8 p.m. Daktari has put The Coaching Habits by Michael Steiner. I believe we have quite a number of coaches, so that's a really good read make sure you grab it. And also, he's posting now the other book to be able to get. So as he does, I'll just like to give some quick announcements from Women on Board. The other book is Business and SDGs by Andrea Martinez. And I can see Lady Caroline is saying, doing good is good business. I have been evangelizing. Thank you, Dr. Edward. It is good. You can see you have more. And I believe by the time we're leaving here, you'll have 50 more, because we're 50 right now. Over 60, so I believe we'll still keep growing. Just a quick update from Women on Board. First, saying thank you to everyone who's listening in to this session. It's really important. But most importantly, even as we continue with the conversation on ESG, is we are having 3 important sessions coming up. First, board profiling and personal positioning workshop, which will start this coming week on 31st March, and we have the second session on the 5th of April. Please register, reach out. Kantai is on the session, Hannah is on the session. Make sure you register. The slots are usually very limited. I have registered. Make sure you register and don't miss out on it. And if you have done it, make sure you have taken the initiative to finish off on your profiling, which is important to be able to put you out there. The second event is on the 8th anniversary for the Women on Board. We will have a breakfast and round table, and it will be held on the 9th of April 2022. We'll do reminders on email so that you don't miss it out. So just put it in your diary that it will be on the 9th for our 8th anniversary. And the final event is Women on Board New Members Orientation Induction, which will be on the 14th April. The children are on holiday. I believe our calendars will get all clouded. And even if you'll be on holiday, don't miss out on these events. It's really important as a member. If you have not attended the orientation, do attend. And even for the anniversary, it will be a great opportunity to network, to share ideas on how we can get it right on ESG conversations in our boards and in our organization. And I just want to say first a big thank you, Dr. Ari. You're passionate in what you do. We can hear you from how you are talking, and I really hope we just are able to implement all these things. And I just want Rose to continue giving the vote of thanks. She has worked with the Women on Board, and she can tell you for sure, we don't just listen, we take action. So I believe you'll hear people reaching out. Kindly, Dr. Ari, if you're able to put in a number also, I believe it will be of great help for the ladies to be able to know how to reach out to you. Rose Sang, please unmute and give a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Damaris, for stepping in to moderate this session. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you, Dr. Ari, for taking the time to be with us this evening. I know that it has been a long conversation coming, and so we really want to appreciate you being with us today. To the Secretariat at Women on Boards, led by Mrs. Wanga, Hannah, Kantai, thank you so much for the work that you do. I know you work around the clock to make sure that these sessions happen, and so the ladies are truly, really grateful for the time that you spend. To Catherine and the board members at Women on Boards, Asante Sana, for giving us the space to be able to engage, to learn, to challenge each other, and to network as well. And, you know, the opportunities that you provide for us within the board settings. So Asanteni Sana, last but not least, ladies, thank you for taking your time out to be with us this evening. We know that there could be a million other things you could be doing, but you chose to be here today. So we don't take that for granted. So thank you very much. God bless. Have a good night and keep safe. Back to you, Damaris.
Thank you very much, Rose. You have just finished it off well. I don't want to add anything. Dr. Ari, God bless you for spending time with us this evening, teaching us, and we are ready to take up all the action you've told us to take up. God bless you, ladies, and take care till the next event. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. God bless you all. Thank you.